when we're talking about subjectivity, right, especially for Freire, when we're talking about subjectivity, we're talking about a recognition of one's humanity, right? When we're talking about subjectivity, we're talking about I recognize that I am a human being, and as such, there are certain requirements, right, of how an individual is to interact with me. As one of the requirements is you should not treat me like an object, right? I have feelings, I have my own desires, I have my own volition, I have my own will, right? To be told and instructed where and how to function and govern myself is not to recognize me as a subject. It is to treat me as an object. So when we're talking about subjectivity, we're talking about a recognition of one's humanity. Anytime we're talking about the process to reclaim subjectivity, we're talking about humanization. Right? So the word humanization is, I'll write it down, humanization is an attempt to reclaim one's, right? Humanization is an attempt to reclaim one's subjectivity, right? I want to be recognized as an individual, as a subject. I want to reclaim my humanity. I was dehumanized by this process of oppression, and my attempt, my struggle for liberation is a categorical attempt to reclaim that subjectivity that was robbed of me. Obviously, objectivity is different, right? Objectivity, rather than looking inward, it's looking outward. And it is to look at a human being, right? You can imagine that this is a human. It is to look at a human being as a thing, right? You don't see the human being for who they are. You see the human being as an object, and we treat the human being as an object, right? And this is the act of objectivity, right? Specifically, he uses the term objectivity. Specifically, we can talk about objectification. Right? Objectification. When we talk about dehumanization, dehumanization is just the inverse, the converse of this, right? Dehumanization is an attempt to, and instead of reclaim one's objectivity, dehumanization is an attempt to impose the imposition of objectivity on human beings, right? So dehumanization is an attempt to impose objectification on, right? It's the attempt to, you can say, objectify human beings, impose objectification on human beings, whatever. The whole process of dehumanization is to treat human beings, subjects, as objects, right? The attempt to treat, that's another way of talking about dehumanization, many ways to word this, right? The attempt to treat a subject as an object is an act of dehumanization. The attempt to impose objectification on a human being is an act of dehumanization. The objectification of a human being is dehumanization. All of these are similar ways of saying the same thing, the process of dehumanizing a human being. What we're doing in the act of liberation is we're going from a state of dehumanization to a state of humanization. The whole struggle for liberation is a struggle to be recognized, right, as a human being, right, recognized as a human being rather than an object for one's manipulation, right? Okay. With this being said, there's two ways that this can happen, right? Remember, what we were talking about in this transformation, he labels as the objective transformation of reality. R-E-A-L-I-T-Y. Sorry. The objective transformation of reality. And I've abbreviated that as OTR. So in the notes it says two forms of OTR basically means the two forms of the objective transformation of reality. And in previous videos I talked about what the objective transformation of reality is. just really quick, 2-second synopsis. Social scientists can talk about facts, just like hard scientists can talk about facts. The facts that hard scientists talk about, for example, the gravitational constant, it's fixed. It's a state of affairs that can be discovered that's not malleable. It's a constant, right? Hence the reason it being fixed, the gravitational constant. Facts that human beings have, they are facts, but what social scientists recognize is that the facts that we discover, the facts that we describe are malleable because these facts are products of social construction. So the fact that it may have been the case that an individual in the past may have spoken about race was a fact, right? There were races. We know now, given technological advances and also a recognition that the whole idea of race presupposed sort of this superiority in the races has been discredited, right? So that we no longer in the scientific community, hard scientists or social scientists, properly speaking, talk about race, right? Because we recognize that race doesn't exist. The fact that it is no longer a fact is a product of social awareness, of revolution, of this liberation theory, right? And it is those who were oppressed by the concept of race arguing that look what this concept is doing to us. So it forced social scientists to reanalyze, right? Reassess the facts. And the transformation of these facts is an objective transformation, right? These facts are no longer the case, right? You wouldn't say that there are, 6 members of X race in this room. We don't talk about human beings like that anymore. Just like we don't talk about the world being flat anymore, right? Or the universe revolving around the solar system, revolving around the Earth. As we progress, as our knowledge increases, what we recognize is, at best, what we have is an inference to the best explanation. And I discussed this in previous videos. So this objective transformation of reality is a real transformation, and that process of transformation is the end result, the culmination of this liberation theory, right? This attempt to regain one's humanity. There's two methods or two forms of this objective transformation, one good, one bad. The first is the transformation, the transformation for, right? With emphasis on for. And the next one is the transformation with. Freire denies the transformation for, right? This is a bad thing. This is a good thing, right? The transformation for is a bad thing. It cannot be the case in an act of liberation that, I erased it. It cannot be in an act of liberation that a revolutionary leader is attempting to transform this objective reality for someone else, right? I cannot struggle as a privileged person or even a member of the oppressed group for someone else, right? I cannot struggle for your emancipation. I cannot struggle for your freedom. If you're the person that's oppressed, if you're the person that's been subjugated, then all I can do is struggle with you, right? We can share the struggle, right? We can recognize, right, and consolidate our knowledge and consolidate our power and consolidate our resources so that we struggle together for this emancipation. It cannot be the case, especially if I'm an oppressor, that I am in an attempt trying to transform something for your good, right? Because what ends up happening is that this becomes nothing more than false charity, false generosity, as we've seen before, right? It's another structure of power used to suppress and impose those of the oppressed class, right?